This is Webinar Wednesdays, and this is the second webinar that I've held in the month of June. I've got a series of them that I'm presenting throughout the month, with the idea being that I'm able to provide simple, effective, and affordable ways for you to build your business. So tonight's focus is obviously on websites. So the theme of this evening, as you well know, is 10 things customers want on your website. So tonight's webinar is going to hopefully equip you with some simple tools, a bit of a 10-point plan for you to take away, and for you to consider your own website or perhaps the website that you're looking to build. And this is actually the second time I've presented this webinar. It's backed by popular demand. I presented it a little while ago and had some great feedback, and also had a number of people that were unable to jump online for the first time around. So here it is again, and hopefully it's just as good, if not better, the second time around. So let's jump into it. So tonight, here's a really quick rundown of how the night's going to play out. So I'm going to provide a bit of an introduction of myself, but also the topic that we're talking about this evening. We're going to talk about why have a website anyway. So what's the whole point behind having a website anyway? Then we're going to jump into the 10 things that customers want on your website. Then I'll give you just some simple next steps for you to take away beyond this webinar. And then we'll delve into some Q&A. So I would encourage you that throughout the webinar this evening, please feel free to jump into the Q&A section and throw any questions in there as we go along. Obviously, I'll do my best to get to all of them towards the end of the session. I'll try not to answer questions throughout the actual talk, but towards the end, we'll jump on into those questions, and obviously that will be a time for Q&A, so you're welcome to bombard me with questions throughout. If we don't get to all of them, I'm happy to take conversations offline as well. So we've only got an hour together, so let's jump on right into it. It's a bit of an introduction about myself. So as you may already know, I founded 7 Patterns, which is my branding and marketing consultancy, in 2013. That was in response to a problem that I heard and saw from a number of people that I was connected to at the time. I did that sort of on the back end of my Bachelor of Business degree, which I studied at the time. So basically came straight out of university and started a business, which has obviously since grown and evolved over time. And I've also completed an MBA more recently. So this isn't just ideas that I've come up with, but it's also learnings that I've undertaken over time as well. I'm now a consultant and advisor to leaders across the business, government, and non-profit sectors. So I've got the privilege of partnering with leaders and brands across all 3 sectors, which keeps me interested and excited. And I'm also a father of 1, and my one little boy has just turned 1. So if you're a parent and you're listening to this, by all means, if you're up for it, please throw me some tips into the comments, or we can take it offline, because I'm all ears when it comes to parenting tips at the moment. He's crawling all over the place. We've had to childproof our entire house. So any parents that are listening, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's a little bit about me. Hopefully that helps. Thank you, Sandy. I've just seen your congratulations pop up there. Appreciate that. All right. And Barry's asking a question about alcohol. Okay, I'm guessing that's a tip that you're providing there, Barry. So thank you for that. Much appreciated. All right. That's a really quick summary of who I am. So let's dive into the content for this evening. So why have a website anyway? It is a good question. Some businesses go all out with a fully blown bells and whistles website. Some businesses choose to keep it pretty simple, pretty effective, and some don't even need it at all. So it is an important question for you to ask of yourself and of your business. Why have a website anyway? Obviously, I'm going to jump into these 10 things, which I would hope by the end of it, you would be able to take a step back and really determine, well, what's the purpose for my website, and do I have these 10 things, or do I at least have the key components from this list of 10 that are applicable in your context or in your industry. So in answering this question, I want to present two different images to you. The first one being a strong brand, which here we have pictured Prada. I'm not sure if any of you are customers of Prada, but I'm sure we would all agree that Prada is quite a strong brand. But by looking at this image, you will see that it's relatively hard for people to find. So this is an example of a strong brand that is difficult for people to find. And we often see that in the world of websites. You can have a really strong brand that's been built over time, but when you don't get the fundamentals in place, or you don't get these simple basic steps in place, you're often hard to find. So you could spend all the time, effort, and money on building your brand, and if you don't get these simple fundamentals in place when it comes to your website, you could be Prada out in the middle of the desert. And then another extreme would be that you're easy to find, but when people find you, it's difficult to navigate. And this is what I really want to hone in on tonight, is we want your website to be not only easy to find, but we want it to be easy to navigate. We want people to have an enjoyable experience when they reach your website. So strong brand, hard to find, or easy to find, hard to navigate. Both problems, which hopefully we're going to present some solutions to this evening. So the three takeaways here as to why I think you should have a website is that it's validation that you do in fact exist as a business. So whether your website is a full-blown bells and whistles website or whether it's just simply a placeholder online for you, it's validation that you do in fact exist. It's inspiration through a hub of content. So that the idea being that the content you are creating and presenting on your website is inspiring people to want to work with you. And then it's direction. So it's putting your business on the map. And that's not just the physical map, but that's the digital map. That's the online, the World Wide Web, as we don't often refer to it as, because it's obviously www, but we want people to have direction as to how to find you and your business. Did you know that 55% of visitors to websites spend less than 15 seconds there? So I think, I'm sure we've probably all heard stats like this, but this is pretty alarming. It basically means that the majority of people that visit websites are spending 15 seconds or less on that website, which basically highlights the fact that we're running out of time. We're running out of time, but before people have even reached our website, we are running out of time. And therefore, if you take one thing away from this evening, I want it to be this: less is more. I've done a whole heap of study, I've worked with a whole heap of brands already, and I'm still learning. But one of the key takeaways I have is less is more. Do not complicate your business, do not complicate your marketing of your business. And in this context, certainly do not complicate your website. And that's why this evening, we're just going to talk about 10 things. So let's jump into the 10. Here we go. Number one, the problem you are solving. The first thing to include on your website is the problem you are solving. So this means defining the problem and the relevant pain points. Now, obviously, you don't need to go into any great detail, but it needs to be clear to the visitor to your website as to the problem that you are solving and why that is a problem for them. So what are the pain points that they're the tangible pain points? And then you need to touch on the solution that you intend to provide. So it needs to be problem paired with a solution. And thirdly, how you intend to solve it. But it's important that you do this in a specific way, but without telling us everything. You still need to leave people wanting to contact you. Otherwise, you've told them everything, and there's no need to do business with you. So it needs to be somewhat specific, but without telling us everything. So that's point number one, the problem you are solving. Point number two is the point of difference. So we've talked about a problem that you are solving. and the solution and how you intend to provide that solution. But I'm sure there's a number of companies that are also intending to do the same. So we need to make it clear to visitors, what is the point of difference with your business? In doing business with you, what is the point of difference? So for you as the business owner, it's important to consider who are you competing with, and then what makes you different to your competitors. This is a really simple way of identifying a bit of a competitor analysis. So who are you competing with, and what therefore makes you different to your competitors? Now, you might take a step back and go, well, there's actually nothing that makes me different at this point in time. And therefore that becomes part of your focus in building your business. But I've got a couple of points throughout this presentation that I'm framing as game changers. Here's the game changer for you when it comes to point of difference. It's essential that you define a unique value proposition, because if you don't, you end up competing on price. So if there's nothing different about your business or what you're offering to the industry, you're simply going to be competing with competitors on price, which means you're going to continue to slash your profit margins until you basically have nothing left. So that's a game changer. Is if you're not quite sure what makes you different, what differentiates you from your competitors, what your point of difference is, it's time to take a step back and consider your unique value proposition. And that's something that I love to do with clients. So obviously more than happy to take any conversations offline and assist you in that very important, that very game-changing process of defining your unique value proposition. So that's point number 2, is point of difference. Number 3, the third thing that customers want on your website is your vision and or purpose. So some companies obviously have to go all out with a full-blown vision. Others like to have a simple sort of purpose. But whether it's blatantly obvious as to what your vision or purpose is, or whether it's weaved into the copy or the writing on your website, it's important that you at least have some sort of a flavor around your vision and or purpose. So this is answering questions such as, why does your business exist? Where are you headed as a business? Why should we connect with your business? And it's essential that in doing this, that you're authentic and transparent. And as I've written here, it can be as simple as one line. Just something that alludes to the real reason that you've started your business. It might even be your own story. It might be the story of how your business came about, or how the name of your business came about. Something that points to the very core of your business and why it's there in the first place. Because without that, you're just another fish in the sea. You're just another business that might have a strong brand and might be difficult to find, or might be easy to find but difficult to navigate because you don't make this clear to your visitors. So that's number 3, vision and or purpose. Number 4 is process of delivery. So we've talked about the problem that you're seeking to solve. We've talked about the need for a solution, and then how you intend to deliver that solution. This is now the process that customers can expect when it comes time for you to deliver a solution for them. Now, again, we don't want to tell them the full story, but we want to give them enough of a taste of it that they want to do business with you, that they want to reach out and contact you. So here it is, we're just clarifying that this is the process for solving the problem that we're telling you that we can solve. And then what can the customer expect if they choose you? And this is where you can be really creative. I mean, me personally, I love to drink a lot of coffee. So I make it pretty clear to my clients that part of my process is I will buy your coffee. Now, obviously, I now do some business in the online forums like this. I think COVID's changed a lot of that for all of us. But I still intend to, as much as possible, get out and about and buy a coffee. Now, that's maybe common, maybe it's unique, but again, that's just something that's authentic to me as a person, but also to my business, And so that's something that you can weave into your process of delivery. Whatever you like to do in order to get the best possible result for your customers, include that in your process of delivery. And as we've got there, make it clear with a call to action. So we want to be really clear, short, succinct with the process of delivery, but we want to leave them wanting more and thereby point them to the call to action. Which leads me to the next point. Perfect segue. Number 5, which is calls to action. So every website needs to have calls to action. Now, some will have just the one, others will have multiple. It really depends on what your business is about and who you're seeking to attract. But the next step when people arrive on your website is made possible through a call to action. And in doing so, you're making the visit worthwhile for both you and for them. So both you as the business owner seeking to attract these customers, and then for the customers who are seeking assistance with a business like yours. So a call to action is making the visit worthwhile for both you and them. And here's another game changer. In business, I've found that contact details are like currency. They get you things, they buy you things, they unlock things, they generate revenue, they bring more people through the door, they unlock new opportunities just by simply attracting people and capturing contact details. So your call to action, whether it be contact us, whether it be sign up for a newsletter, whatever it might be, if you can capture contact details in the process, then you're putting the ball into your own court and you're opening up a whole array of opportunity for you and your business. So that's number 5, is calls to action. Number 6, which again is a nice segue from the earlier point, is a conversation starter. So you want your website to be a conversation starter between you and the customer. Now, obviously, you can achieve this through the type of content that you have and the way that you present your website. But I'm talking more here about how you engage your customer through the website experience, which again can be a call to action. So you want to think about how can people communicate with you, whether that's through the website or whether they've gone via your website and landed on your social media channels or your email address or your phone number. But as I've emphasized here, it's important that you give options because different people like different forms of communication. Now, some people are happy to just simply jump onto a website and fill out an online form and expect a response. But I've come to realize that so many companies either don't respond or take an astronomical amount of time to respond to those sorts of forms. So obviously, my preference is usually email or social media, whereas people who prefer the more conventional methods are likely to just click the phone number and have a chat. So it really just depends, but it's important, in my view, that you have at least 2 or 3 options. You don't need to have them all. You don't need to have you don't need to have 15 social media channels for people to choose from and 4 different phone numbers and so on, but you want to have at least 2 or 3 of these type of options so that people can pick and choose their preferred method of communication. And the game changer on this point is asking for feedback, but then responding in a timely manner. So I would suggest that in the first instance, you're obviously responding in a timely manner, regardless of the type of communication or the form of communication that the customer has used. Now, it's essential that you respond in a timely manner. Obviously, on the platforms like Facebook, they'll actually somewhat reward you for responding in a timely manner. They'll have a bit of a badge on your page or something that indicates that you respond to messages quickly. So that's obviously further incentive for you to do so. But even if it's a website form, an email, a phone call, ensure that you respond in a timely manner, because that alone can separate you or set you apart from your competitors. That alone, in the first instance, can be your point of difference. But then I would encourage you, just thinking, further down the track, that if you've done work for a customer use your website as another way of continuing the conversation by asking for feedback. And obviously in doing so, you're able to establish that relationship. It's as simple as setting up another sort of contact us type form on your website and using that as a way to seek feedback. Which leads me to this point. Isn't it amazing that each point just flows into the next one? Number 7, real stories from real people. Now here we're obviously alluding to testimonials or case studies for visitors to relate to. Now obviously I talked on the previous point about seeking feedback from your customers. In doing so, you're able to identify potential real stories from real people. Now obviously I understand the complexities and often the confidentiality in certain industries, myself included in that, whereby you're not always able to tell stories of the work that you've done or testimonials from real people. So in that instance, I would suggest that you at least include logos of companies you've worked with or organizations that you've interacted with and so on, or even organizations that you've supported if it's that type of business. So it's important that you have some sort of connection to the real world, to real people, so that people know, okay, they're actually doing work with real people or with real organizations. Because in doing so, you're adding credibility to your business. So you're making it clear to people that you are in fact the real deal, that you are able to achieve results for well-established organizations. Now, obviously, if you're a business that's just starting out, this can take some time, but it's important that as you get runs on the board, that you don't forget to update your website and to make it clear to people that you are indeed doing what you said you would do. You are indeed solving the problem that you intend to solve. And just a quick tip in this space is to draft a testimonial or draft a case study for your clients and then just simply seek their approval to use it. Now, obviously, some people might be fairly particular in how you word it and present it. So they might offer some feedback and some changes and so on, and that's fine. Others, in my experience, the majority of people are happy for you to simply take it, and if they give the tick of approval, up it goes. So that's a simple tip, which obviously enables you to be somewhat in control of the narrative, but also seek their permission, and in doing so, strengthen the credibility of your business and obviously your website. So that's number 7. I hope this is helpful thus far. As I said, feel free to add questions throughout the talk. I'm looking to leave considerable amount of time towards the end for us to talk through some questions. So that's number 7. Number 8. Here's a couple of you musts, and these are just a few points that I'm particularly passionate about and I really want to drive home this evening. The first one being, you must talk the talk. And by this, I don't just mean say what you're going to do and then do it. I mean focusing and paying considerable attention to the copywriting of your website. Now, for those who haven't heard that term before, copywriting is basically just the text that you have on your website and how that's written, how that's presented, how that's formatted, so on and so forth. Copywriting is hugely important. Now, obviously, some people move more towards the formal end of the spectrum when it comes to copywriting. Others are more towards the conversational, chatting with a friend at the weekend barbecue type copywriting. Wherever you sit in it, it's important that you establish the tone of your business, the style that you intend to convey, and stay true to that, which obviously leads to the second point around language, which I've certainly discovered that the language of a website gives people an initial taste of your business. So when you're engaging with a creative agency, you would like the copywriting to be somewhat creative. If you're engaging with a university, you would expect a more formal type language. So language gives you a bit of a taste, a clear a clearer idea of what you should expect from that organisation, or the culture, the feel, the vibe of that organisation. Now, here's the game changer when it comes to copywriting and talking the talk, is that the content of your website determines Google results. Now, this has been somewhat of a recent change in how the Google algorithm works, but in my experience and in my understanding, Google now scans websites for the actual content. Gone are the days, I mean, obviously there's still opportunity for you to sit in the back end of a website and write a complete list of keywords that relate to your business. But what Google is more interested in now is the actual content of your website. So if you're in education and you want the word teaching Perth, for example, to be something that people type in to then find your website, if you've got teaching Perth all throughout your content, chances are you're going to have a much better chance of people finding you than if you're just simply typing it in as a title somewhere. So Google's scanning your entire website for keywords, and in doing so, serving up Google results to customers that are searching those keywords. I hope that makes sense. That's just a quick tip, which I see as a game changer, whereby if you place emphasis on your copywriting and you get your copywriting right, which obviously you don't have to do that yourself. There's organizations, there's agencies like mine that can help with that, but copywriting is hugely important. Number 9, another you must map the journey. Now, what I mean by this is give consideration to the likely pathways that your customers will take when they visit your website. So you might have some customers that will just go direct to your contact us page, others that will like to have a bit of a look around. But as I said earlier on, you've really only got 15 seconds. Some will hang around for longer, but if you operate through the lens of I've got 15 seconds to make this work, obviously mapping the journey becomes hugely important. So as I've said here, time is of the essence. You want to make the journey easy for visitors. If you've got buttons all over the place, drop-down menus and so on and so forth, you're not exactly making it easy for your visitors. The chances are you'll either lose them in that 15-second period, or you'll confuse them and therefore lose them. The second point here is to make your website responsive. And by responsive, I mean device friendly. Obviously, the majority of people these days are looking at websites on these things, on iPhones and smartphones. So you want to ensure that your website is just as beautiful on a smartphone as it is on a laptop or on a computer. And the word for that is responsive. And responsive basically means that your website will adjust itself to suit the size of the screen that people are viewing it on. So I see that as essential. For us at 7 Patterns, we don't build any websites that aren't responsive because it's a fundamental. It's an absolutely essential component of any sort of a website. And the game changer here is that the Google algorithm, so further to what I said earlier about content, the Google algorithm also scans your website for ease of use. So if you've got two companies that are presenting similar products or services, similar type keywords, one is going to get a better ranking than the other based on ease of use. So Google scans your website and basically maps the journey themselves to determine how easy is this website for customers or for visitors to navigate, and therefore where should we place it in the rankings. Now there's obviously other elements that contribute to rankings on search engines such as Google, but these are just some key fundamentals that I want to include in the context of a website, and simple things that you can be doing to ensure that Google doesn't forget about your website, that it isn't a strong brand that's hard to find, but that you're building a strong brand that's also hard to find, that's also easy to find, and as per my earlier images, it's also easy to navigate. So that's number 9. You must map the journey. And number 10, here we go. The last one is you must keep the main thing the main thing. Now, obviously, that's a play on words, emphasizing the importance of your domain name. Now, a lot of businesses go wrong here, and I've worked with a whole bunch of them where literally the first step is purchase a new domain name, because so many, I feel, fail to place any sort of value on the actual domain name. Now, obviously, not only does this impact the Google side of things, but it also makes it difficult for people to find it and remember it if it's a strange domain name, or if it's a lengthy domain name, or if it's a name that doesn't really connect with your actual business name. I've seen a whole array of different scenarios, hence why we at 7 Patterns manage domain names for a whole range of different companies. So key point here is it easy to find and remember? That's essential. If the domain name isn't relevant, if it's not easy to find and remember, chances are people are going to be Googling you, which isn't always such a bad thing, but you would much prefer people to go direct. And I suppose a good way to look at this is, do not create an amazing home that is impossible to find. So you might spend all your time and energy and your dollars on building a website that is beautiful, that is amazing, that has all of these things that we've talked about. And then if you don't get this last point right, if you don't keep the main thing, then it becomes almost impossible for people to find it. So just a suggestion here is obviously .com is ideal. 7 Patterns was a name that had a .com available, so that was an important factor for me. .com.au, obviously in the context of Australia, is important, which again, it comes back to type of business that you have, whether you're keeping it within Australia or whether you're looking to go beyond. .com.au can be somewhat limiting. If you can get .com and .com.au, if you can get both of them, that is an ideal scenario. And then there's other domain names now that can be relevant. So we recently registered a domain name for a real estate business, and we were able to get .property. So that was something that was of interest to them. Obviously, the .property is completely relevant, and so that was an effective way for us to find a unique but effective domain name for their business. So there's a whole range of those out there now, but I would suggest that you aim for .com or .com.au, and if possible, steer clear of the likes of .net and .net.au. So that's number 10. But wait, there's more. Here is a bonus. So I've given you the 10, but here's a little bonus, which isn't always applicable, but hopefully to some of you it is. And this is to include a special offer. Now that's simply basically give away something free. We all love free stuff. I'm sure we would all agree that we love free stuff. And so this can be as simple as, giving away a free product or giving away free advice. If people sign up to a mailing list, they're going to receive free such and such. So it's really up to you with what's applicable in your context. But the game changer here is that by enticing visitors to engage with you through the channel of something free, you're able to, again, obtain contact data, which, as I said earlier, if you get contact details or contact data, that is currency. That is gold in the context of business, in my opinion, because you're able to do things such as email marketing. And just on the topic of email marketing, I'm presenting a webinar in a couple of weeks' time on essentials of email marketing. So I'll actually walk you through how to set up email marketing and how to get the most value out of that. So that's the game changer here, is to include a special offer. And it's important that whatever you include, it's part of your overall marketing strategy so that it's of benefit to you and it doesn't actually set you back. So that's a quick bonus. So here are some next steps we've been through the 10 things that customers want on your website. So I would now assess your own website, or assess the plan for your own website using this as a 10-point check. Obviously, if you need a new or refreshed website, I would be more than happy to talk about that with you offline. So I'll give you some contact details, I think, on the next slide. And then obviously, the key thing to remember here is that less is more. So we've obviously been through a heap of content this evening. I've given you 10 things, but don't feel like you have to do 10 different pages or start writing, pages and pages of content based on these 10 things. It's important that you still see it as less is more. Keep things simple, keep it effective, and I'm sure your website will be great. So let me just run you back through the 10 things. Number one, the problem you are solving, and obviously the solution that you intend to provide and how you do it, but be specific without telling us everything. Your point of difference, so what makes you different to your competitors. Defining a unique value proposition is the game changer to avoid having to compete on price. Number three is your vision and or purpose. Why does your business exist? Where are you headed? Be authentic and be transparent. Your process of delivery is number four, to how you intend to solve the problem that you've told us you're intending to solve, which then leads to the call to action. So including calls to action enable you to have that next step. And if possible, as I've said there, as the game changer, is obtain some contact details. Number six is the conversation starter. So how are you initiating that conversation with customers, giving them options with different forms of communication, whether that be on your website or via your website to your email, phone, social media, and the like. Responding in a timely manner is hugely important. Number seven is real stories from real people, so including some testimonials or case studies in order to add credibility to your business. The quick tip there was to draft for your clients and seek approval before using. Number eight was you must talk the talk, so the importance of copywriting and the language in giving people a taste of your business, which obviously plays into the Google side of things. Number nine is you must map the journey. Time is of the essence. Ensure you've got a responsive website. Obviously, that feeds into the Google side of things as well. And number 10 was all around your domain name, ensuring that it's easy to find and remember so that people are able to actually experience this amazing home or this amazing hub of content that you've worked so hard to build. Then obviously I threw in the bonus offer, which is free stuff. If you can include something free and in doing so obtain some contact data, then you are well positioned. Those were the next steps. So now I'm going to throw it open to Q&A. I see we've got a couple that have come through. So let's dive into that. And as we start to answer these, by all means, feel free to throw some more questions in there. Even if you've asked a question already, feel free to keep the questions coming. We've still got a little bit of time together, so let's dive into it. Let me just check what's said here. All right, so I've got a question here that's been dropped into the comments. Good webinar, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. So a question here is, I'm launching in Australia but intend to scale at some point. Is it best to use .com? Yes, that would be my recommendation. Now, a little trick here is that whether you're managing the domain yourself or whether you have a company that manages it for you, there is a way for you to direct your domains to a certain place. So if you've got the .com and the .com.au, but you see yourself as going international, or maybe you're already international, I would 100% encourage you to use .com and then forward your .com.au to that .com domain. So that way, even if people are typing in 7patterns.com.au, it's going to end up at the .com. Now that I say that, I should probably check that mine's still in place, but that would be my recommendation there. And the other question that's there is regarding the call to action. Do you think at times it can sound cheesy? Any way to avoid that? Is it okay? People are used to it. Yeah, good question. I know what you mean around the call to action. Again, it comes down to the context of the industry that you're in and the type of business that you are. But I would suggest seek some feedback, whether that's with friends or family, or even with clients that you're already working with. If you see fit, I would suggest seeking some feedback, or how did you find out about us? How did you get in contact with us? Some businesses are getting all their contact through social media, so then the website becomes almost an afterthought where people are jumping on there just prior to a meeting or prior to delving into further work with the business. So it really just depends on the call to action. But again, as I said, it's important that you're authentic and you're transparent in the way that you communicate. And I believe that as you do that, chances are it's going to resonate, because people are drawn and attracted to authenticity and transparency. Hope that helps. So that was in the chat section. So I'm now going to jump into the Q&A section. Barry's already given me his feedback on parenting. All right. So the next question here is, should the domain name be aligned to a product or service? Now, that is a good question. Obviously, without knowing your specific situation, I would suggest that you start by making a domain name your business name, or as close to your business name as possible. Now, obviously, then the opportunity lies within setting up either a separate website or landing page for your product or service that is connected to your business page, or actually just embedding your products or services within your website. Now, obviously, there may be some unique situations whereby your product or service is actually holds a stronger brand than your business itself. Now, obviously, in those sorts of scenarios, then it would probably make sense for you to make it more about the product or service. But I would say 99% of cases, aim for a domain name that is connected to your business name or as close to as possible. I hope that helps. Next question. Back on the point of websites, those which have all the bells and whistles versus basic, what is your experience with do you have any preference? I'm hoping to make mine as perfect as possible, but don't want to sink too much time into it. I'll just have what's required, i.e. minimalist. Again, great question. And dependent on your business and industry once again, but I would suggest do the bare basics in the first instance, particularly for the likes of yourselves who are probably new to running a business, or perhaps working with perhaps don't have the most dollars to throw at a website at this point in time. I would suggest get something online and use that as a way to monitor the type of engagement that you get with your website. For some people, it's the website is purely that hub of content, but again, you're getting more of your business through social media and the like. So again, you probably don't want to go all out with the bells and whistles one if that's the case. Others, you're getting all your traffic through the website and not through social media, and therefore it's worthwhile getting the bells and whistles. So depending on where you're at and the type of budget you're working with, I would suggest in most cases just get something up online, and obviously you can build towards something that's far more beautiful with all the bells and whistles at the right time. And in doing so, you're able to gauge what are people engaging with, what do people want that maybe is not there, what have you got there that maybe people don't want, and you can really refine your website offering before you spend all the dollars. Hope that helps. Let's continue on. Next question, I have a website that I need someone to look over and advise on modifications. Having zero knowledge about electronic marketing, what I currently have looks good to me, but really, what would I know? Okay, that's a good question / comment. And obviously that's something I'm more than happy to assist with, either through a consultation via the Business Station website or flick me an email. But yeah, that's obviously a trap that we can all get into, whereby we think in our own eyes it looks great, and then we wonder why our business isn't growing, or why people aren't engaging with our website, or why people aren't spending any time on our website. Now, obviously, the intention behind presenting these 10 things this evening is that it helps you refine that a little bit more. But it's always good to have that fresh set of eyes and perhaps an expert opinion on the website and what looks good. So by all means, feel free to reach out or reach out to any of the advisors. I'm sure they would all be more than happy to provide some feedback in that space. All right, next question. We have a e-commerce website, web shop. Are the 10 points applicable to our type of site? Absolutely. Now, obviously, there's some added elements, added features in your context, but by all means, it's important that you have these 10 things included. Now, obviously, I'm giving you 10 things to consider. Not every business and not every industry requires all 10, but hopefully the vast majority of these 10 are applicable. Others of them you might try and gauge the response, such as giving away something free. I think in the context of an e-commerce website, giving away something free is probably a great thing to trial. Now, obviously, that's got to fit within your overall marketing strategy and your costs and so on. But I would suggest that that's certainly something worth trying. But the real fundamentals that I've talked about this evening are, for the most part, applicable in any sort of business context and on any sort of website. I hope that helps. All right. Thanks, that helps, Nathan. Basically, that is what I've done so far. Okay, great. Good to know. That's Barry, so feel free to reach out to me offline if I can be of help there, Barry. Got another comment coming through here. Oh, what is the biggest mistake you see people do? Ooh, that is a good question. I think if we want to talk sort of in branding and marketing more generally, which obviously websites are a huge component of that, I think it's a lack of consistency. Now, obviously, what I mean there is both in your branding, whereby your logo, your colors, your fonts, no consistency, but then also your messaging. So I've talked about copywriting this evening. I've talked about your purpose, your vision, the problem you're solving. No consistency across the board. And that's, across various touch points. So some businesses fairly conventional with flyers and newspaper advertisements and so on. Those are often not consistent with what you're seeing and feeling on the website. Likewise with social media and so on. So I think one of the biggest mistakes is a lack of consistency, and that I would say is one of the main reasons I started my business. Was not only did I see a whole lot of brands and businesses that didn't look good, and I was frustrated by that, but I also saw a lack of consistency. So it's almost like the left hand isn't talking to the right hand. The website's not talking to the social media channels, or the email isn't talking to the flyer. So getting consistency across all your marketing touch points is hugely important, because whether you like it or not, you might think, oh, that client came to me through Facebook. But what if they saw your website, and what if they saw a flyer, and what if they saw something on Instagram before they made it to Facebook? And that's the real reason that they came to do business with you. People often don't give credit to the various touch points that are out there before a customer actually makes their decision. It's like when you go to buy a KFC burger chances are it's not just the TV ad that you saw. It's probably that you saw an ad on social media, you saw a bus stop on your way to work, you heard someone talk about it on the train. So it's all these different touch points that have contributed to your customer decision to go and wait in line for a KFC burger. Now, most people wouldn't break it down like that, but obviously I've been in this game for a little while. So even when I'm buying my KFC burger, I'm thinking, what has led me to this decision? Is it just that I felt like a KFC burger, or have they been subtly chipping away at me all week with various different touch points, with consistent messaging, consistent branding, consistent everything else? And as a result, I've been sucked in, I've been lured into getting my KFC burger. Something interesting for you to think about and hopefully helpful. I know you said interesting, so I'm glad. Great. If you've got any other questions, feel free to fire away. Just before, oh, here we go. Last question. Do you have an ideal time to ask a consumer regarding their demographics after sale versus prior? Oh, that's an interesting question. I think what you mean is whether you're asking the customer prior to actually doing business with you, whether the content on the website has been relevant, is that right? Versus after. If not, let me know. Just before I jump into that, if you're able to give me a bit of clarity, that would be great. Let me just jump ahead before I answer that one and just flag this. Obviously, I mentioned it a little earlier in the talk, but on the 30th of June, I'll be presenting a webinar, my final one for the month of June in what we're calling Webinar Wednesdays. 30th of June, I'm presenting on the essentials of email marketing. Now, obviously, throughout this talk, I've touched a few times on the importance of contact data and how you can implement some strategies to obtain contact data. Now, once you've got that data, or perhaps you've got data already of customers that you had along the way and you're wanting to turn them into repeat customers, this webinar is very much going to touch on that. I'm actually going to do a live demonstration of how to set up an email marketing account, how to set up a template, prepare your own emails, and once you've got a template in place, it's a whole lot easier to just replicate, update your content, and maintain that regular contact, both with your customers, but also for those of you who might have teams of employees. It's also super useful and super handy for contacting your team members internally as well. So that's coming up. All right, let me just revert back to this question. You said yes, exactly, like they're refining who your target audience is. Yep, great point. I think there's an opportunity to do it on both sides of the equation. So whether you're doing it pre-sale or post-sale, but I think either way, it's important that you do consider it. So whether you're putting things in place to do that prior to the customer making their decision, obviously that's likely to enhance their experience, but also afterwards, coming back to my point around asking feedback, that is a really useful channel for doing so as well, so that you're able to refine your messaging, refine your approach, refine your product or service offering. So it's important that you actually set aside time for that rather than just business as usual, because you're probably missing an opportunity to either expand your target audience or to improve your product or service. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense and is helpful. All right, we've still got a couple of minutes. Great, awesome, thank you. I'm pleased. I've still got a couple of minutes, so if you've got any other questions, fire away. Otherwise, I will give you 5 minutes of your evening back. Any other questions? Well, if there's no other questions, feel free to throw them in there while I finish up. But if there's nothing else, just say a big thank you. Oh, there we go. Oh, they're coming. Oh, thank you, Barry. Very kind. Another question here. We have both domains, .com and .com.au. Which one should point to? Okay. Good question. Now, if you're currently doing business in Australia only, I would suggest .com points to .com.au. If you're currently doing business internationally, I would suggest .com.au pointing to .com, if that makes sense. Now, obviously, the fact you've got both is brilliant because you can always chop and change that. But I would suggest if currently you're doing business in Australia, make .com.au your primary domain. Hopefully that helped. Got another one coming through here. Thank you very much for this presentation, mate. Oh, brilliant. You're very welcome. Thank you for the feedback. As I said, big thank you to all for joining me this evening. If I can be of any further assistance offline, feel free to book a consult through Business Station. If you would like the notes from this presentation, this slide deck, feel free to send an email to hello@7pats.com and I will send through the slide deck for you. And obviously feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. I'll be more than happy to hear more about your business and assist at any stage moving forward. Another thank you there. Thanks very much, John. And thank you all again for your time this evening. Have a great rest of your evening and all the best with your business, all the best with your website, and feel free to reach out to me at any point. Thanks and speak soon.